grab a drink, have a seat. Rachel, that includes you. Oh, I need the clicker. All right, everyone, welcome to tonight's topic, talking about the future of money. For those of you that don't, can you... Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Tonight, a quick little rundown of tonight's events. I'm going to do some announcements. I'm going to bring up Matt Hooper, who's my partner in crime. We're going to zoom in David Nicholas. Can we confirm that he is online and ready to go, please? Then we're going to talk about the future of money, which is a very hot topic at the moment. And then we're going to continue on with some more networking. I don't know why that's not working. For those of you that don't know me, I know most of you do, so I'm not going to blabber on too much. But my name is Danielle Marie. Any of you that have not met me and would like to connect with me, please go ahead and connect with me. You can scan that QR code. I wear many different hats in this space. I'm a head blockchain trainer for TAFE Queensland. I am the founder of Women in Digital Economy, founder of All Things Blockchain, which is the event that you're here tonight, and I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. I've co-founded Off-Chain Brisbane, which is a collaboration that we have, and I also sit on the blockchain committee for the ACS alongside Rachel and Karen, who you're going to hear from a little bit later. And most recently, I have just been appointed as a position at a Web3 consultancy in the UAE, and I'm sure you're going to ask me, how do I do it? I'm single with no children. So let's move on to the next slide, please. I don't know why my clicker's not working. All Things Blockchain, I founded in November 2020. And a little side note, Jeff Yu was actually the very first person that I went to for sponsorship when he was the CEO of Binance Australia. And I said, hey, I want to start this meetup. Will you sponsor it? And so that's a little side story. And I don't know if you know that, Jeff, that you were really my first sponsor of All Things Blockchain. So let's give it a round of applause for Jeff. He contributed to the start of All Things Blockchain. I wanted to create a community that was run and organized by the community, and we don't do it all on my own. And for some reason, the clicker's not working, so it's not going so smooth. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Couldn't happen without all of the volunteers that help me. I do drive it. I am the founder behind it all, but it's without these amazing volunteers that make this all happen, the food, the drinks, the room. All right, next slide, please. Also, all of our sponsors, if you guys just, okay, I'm just gonna, can we just minimize the, no, just minimize this. I'm sorry, okay, but can you do it on his computer? Thank you. All right, sorry. Can we go back to the other slide? Thank you. I don't know why my clicker is not working. No, yep, okay. These are our sponsors of 2024, and Binance Australia every year has continued to support us. So amazing sponsors. Please go onto our website and check them all out. They all deserve a little bit of a round of applause, but a big special out to Stables tonight because all of the food and drinks are being provided by Stables, so we can give them a bit of a round of applause. Thank you very much. It'd be much easier if my clicker would just work. Thank you. So we do collaboration partners. Off-Chain Brisbane is a global organization for anybody that travels. I've recently started traveling a lot, and I actually met somebody through Off-Chain Global while I was in Austin who's building a layer one, and now I'm doing business with them. So it's a pretty powerful community. So if you are traveling, I recommend that you touch into that. Women in Digital Economy, which is my new passion project where I am mentoring women to enter into the Web3 space, and the Australian Crypto Convention, which we have a discount coupon code for you in just a little bit of a moment. Next slide, please. We are looking for more support with growing online. We've always been in real life based. We're trying really hard to kind of go more online, even though it's not our jam and we're doing it based off of volunteers. But we do appreciate if you try to give us a like or a follow. We are starting to live stream. So hello to everyone. Can we say hello to everyone online? We've got probably about like 10, 15 people online tonight, and we are live streaming. So we're trying very hard off of our volunteer efforts. So we do really appreciate if you can give us a like or a follow. Next slide, please. Also, one of my blockchain students has created this utility hub. So if you scan that and get access to it, essentially is breaking down into different categories so that you can go in and kind of find some projects that are in that area. If you're like, oh, loyalty reward programs, or what about fractionalization of real estate? So you can go on to there. And she has built that out. If you also have a project that you would like us to list, you can fill out the form and she can list it for you. Next slide, please. Go through that just a bit more. Now I'm going to bring up my partner in crime, Matt Hooper, and hopefully fix the clicker.
My clicker. Thank you. Hello, my name's Matt. Hello to everyone online. I've been chatting to a couple of you. We're trying to engage more, increase our production values. So it is good to have you all here. Who's travelled? I haven't done my travel segment for a while. Who's come from the Gold Coast? I know Renee has. Thank you. Gold Coast. Oh, and Karen, of course. Anyone? Adrian, you're Gold Coast too, aren't you? Where are you from? No? Anyone further than the Gold Coast? Byron Bay-ish. Byron Bay and surrounds. That might take the prize tonight. North Coast, John Plummer, I know, is here. He's come from, here he is. He has come from the Sunshine Coast. So we thank you for traveling from far and wide, and welcome to newcomers here tonight. I'm not going to take too long because we've got a lot of stuff to talk to. Thank you, Danielle. I think it's a line of sight thing as much as anything. Next month, an event which I'm going to push live in a minute. That is with our sponsor, Tax on Chain, right around tax time. Very prescient to be thinking about minimizing our tax. So no financial advice will be given, but we will be looking at tax minimization strategies. And they're also bringing in colleagues from industry, one of whom is here tonight. Jack from Pier 2 will also be on the bill, or at least one of his colleagues will. Uptrade and also SwiftX. So it's going to be quite a representative night of the Brisbane crypto and blockchain space. So really looking forward to that. That's 1 month. We're getting back to our regular cycle now of the first Wednesday nights. Thank you, Danielle. The first Wednesday night of the month will be all things blockchain. Our friends over at OzDeFi have one of their events coming up. It's almost impossible to keep up with the pace of Mark and what they put on around the country. It really is phenomenal. He is back in Brisbane on the 23rd of July, this time back at the precinct for the OzDeFi meetup for this month. I'm sure there should be lots of laughs. They've moved over to Luma, so you might want to check that. Is there a Luma app? I couldn't find a Luma app for Android. Does anybody know? I haven't. There was for attending an event, but I didn't. Yeah, okay, I'll have to investigate that further. Luma seems to be the app du jour for events in the crypto space. Thank you, Daniel. Not much more from me. Just to note, a few of you who were here last time would have heard the announcement at Blockchain Week that Blockchain Australia is morphing into the Digital Economy Council of Australia, DECA. A little bit of a mouthful, but if you think of it, if you know the Tech Council of Australia, I suppose these guys are doing it for our distributed ledger technologies. And I guess what that says to me is it's sort of a maturation point of the industry, that we're actually at a point where we're talking more than just about blockchain. We're not just banging the blockchain drum, but we're going to be talking about some of those areas, which are membership categories, which reflect the type of organizations in this industry who are building every day. And we're going to hear from Jeff Yu later tonight with the release of the Bitcoin F and much more, Bitcoin ETF and much more. These people are building this stuff. You know, when I talk to randoms who want to diss crypto, well, that to me is crypto in action. You know, it's not the retail crypto that maybe, you know, fluctuates wildly, but this is, you know, cryptographic stuff in action. All right, enough out of me. I think, Danielle, maybe one or two more slides. Events. We love events. It gets me out of bed in the morning. Blockchain Australia have an events calendar, and they scrape event meetups all around the country and publish that on this website. If you just go to blockchainaustralia.org, it's relatively easy to find. Thank you, Danielle. And really, we're over to Stables. And it sounds like David has indeed joined the call. That is good news. Okay, Daniel's just going to switch screens so that the viewers at home will see the stage where our speakers are going to be assembled. Oh, look, that was me about 5 years ago. Can you hear us, David?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, fantastic.
Marvelous.
I can't hear you, but that is okay. Welcome to this evening. I'm David Nichols, the co-founder and chief risk officer of Stables. Hopefully you enjoy the beers and the food tonight. We're delighted to sponsor. We'd love to be involved in the Web3 space, and I think it's very exciting. I've got Karen, if there are any questions that come through, just SMS me. I've got that going as well. So for those that don't know what Stables is, so Stables is basically a digital wallet that enables people to be able to spend and send from their stablecoin balance. So we're well and truly launched in Australia, and now we're continuing our vision and our mission of global domination. And we say that jokingly, but at the same time, we're on a fairly rapid expansion path, and we're obviously partnering up with Mastercard and some other. Can you hear me? Speaking up into the mic. Cool. Okay, awesome. So we basically enable a utility function within the Web3 space. So we enable customers to be able to spend and send their balance. We'll also have an earn component that's coming soon. By way of a bit of background to me, so 20 plus years in more traditional financial services across risk, compliance, governance, legal, product structuring, and international expansion. So we're basically a bit of a hybrid between the wonderful world of crypto, of digital assets, and also kind of that gateway into more traditional financial services. We are fairly rapidly expanding, as I said, so we're obviously targeting very selected corridors of Asia, so areas like the Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia. We're also live in Africa as well, so we've got about 15 countries in Africa. Europe's also another area where we're very focused in. We've got entities and licenses. In Europe, we'll be looking to leverage off the MiCA regulations that have come into play, and we are a team of dedicated builders, passionate people that really love to be chatting with our customers, to be interacting, to making sure that we're solving real world problems. And look, we've been incredibly blown away and very grateful by the response that we've had. And we strongly welcome anyone that hasn't sort of checked out Stables before to download the app, take the action, be brave. It's okay. As fellow builders in the room, it's always one of those things where you build something that you think is sexy and beautiful and works really well, and if no one uses it, then that's kind of a bit beside the point. We've been incredibly fortunate that lots of Australians are using us. We've also enabled Apple and Google Pay, so it's as simple as loading your stablecoin balance or fiat onto your Stables app and card. We give virtual cards through Mastercard, and then you can kind of spend it anywhere where Mastercard's accepted all around the world. And look, I think we're just getting started. It's one of those really exciting points where, as a founder of the business, it's almost like a child that you've kind of you're raising, you're nurturing, you're giving them all the tools that they need, and now other people are sort of starting to embrace it. We've got global partners that are also helping us with that space. And if there's any sort of cool vendors and partners in the room, please feel free to reach out to Stables or me on LinkedIn or one of our social channels. We feel it's incredibly important to be part of a community like this. And look, we're really fortunate in Australia that everyone collaborates really well. And we're always incredibly happy to sponsor events, just to kind of give back at the same time as that. So if anyone's got any questions in the room or online, go through the amazing
Can you bring that up?
Karen,
I know
because
you
I
can't hear
can.
us.
I've got SMS corres with her. I'm looking at the chats now. So, how do you plan to circumnavigate one of the micro prerequisites of being a licensed European entity to meet the new regulations? So,
Sorry, can I
we
just
embrace
repeat
all
that so everyone can
regulations.
hear it in
And
the room?
for those
How
that
do
aren't
you
aware,
plan
what's
to
happening
circumvent
in
one
Europe,
of
so
the
the
micro?
MiCA, so the markets and crypto assets regulations have landed. They're in force. So we're licensed. So we've got an entity within the European Union that we acquired quite some months ago in preparation for this. So we will be embracing that regulatory environment. And look, I'm the chief risk officer, so I handle all of the regulatory interactions and what a space this is. There's almost a consultation paper around the world coming out in various different locations. We're also sort of tuned into what's happening in the UAE, fascinating space, and Europe and everywhere else. So I think it's almost a bit of an opportunity for Australia to land on its licensing regime, and we obviously embrace that as well. And then we go from there. Okay, I can't hear anything, so if you could just put it through either on the chat or through Karen, who's SMS'd me. Another question that's come in: will you accept AUD stablecoins in the future? So I guess the irony of a stablecoin that it's got to be stable, and the old economist in the room tells me that in order for a stablecoin to be stable, it kind of needs the fundamentals of demand and supply to be kind of aligned. So we deliberately only take the largest stablecoins, so USDC, USDT, and a few others. In the future, and we're in regular conversations with the various different stablecoin providers around the world, obviously within Australia as well. So we almost want to be positioned as the stablecoin expert around the world. That's all we do. That's what we live and we breathe. We work with institutionals, governments, business, and obviously the retail offering as well. So once the AUD stablecoins are a bit more mature, then we'll certainly be looking to them. Next question, virus seems more friendly. So yeah, look, I mean, I think once you, and I'm an old sort of CRO from sort of ADIs and AFSLs. So once you embrace that, I actually think this space should be regulated when you're dealing with people's money. For me, it's units of trust. There's the custody element. There's the potential to lose that. So we actually feel that once you kind of accept that regulation is kind of there and it's only going to get more intense, then you just kind of lean in and you set up a compliance program that can cater for basically global regulatory requirements, everything from AML, privacy, data protection, cyber. So all the things that you probably should have been doing anyway. And look, we've been around for over 3 years now. So I mean, we probably could have launched our product without any licenses before, but I think it's well and truly a changing space. Feel free, any other questions, either if you're in person, put your hand up. Karen's SMSing me. Another question. So how will you pivot from USDC
You gotta love it.
when
A
the
room
US
of
dollar
Web3 people and you
devalues
can't
very
get tech sorted.
significantly, like BRICS and other money printing, etc.? How will it affect AUD? Yeah, really good question. And I mean, I'll kind of answer it by saying the stablecoin volumes are getting pretty staggering. So I think it was around $7.3 trillion in 2023. Now in 2024, it's looking like it's going to be sort of around I think it's 23 to 30 trillion expected stablecoin volumes. So you're getting that pretty solid flows of volumes. Whether or not the US dollar actually devalues, I mean, obviously there's an element of almost FX risk within our business, but I mean, I think the US dollar will never totally not exist, even though I am a fellow, conspiracy theory and a little bit anti that sort of establishment. But I think once you look at the big amount of stablecoins, I think that's all we have time for. So hopefully that answered your question. And enjoy the drinks, enjoy the food, and please download the Stables app.
Give them a round of applause. All right, so I'm going to remove the pin. It's always a extra level of tech when you're zooming someone in. Right, how do I get back to the screen? Hello? I don't know. All right, well, Karen, do you want to bring up a panel while I try to figure out the technical?
I'm going to hand over to Rachel, our moderator. There you go.
My heart rate's at 160. So. All right, panel, looks like we're up. Keep in mind we have some prizes for the best question as well, so keep that in mind. Oh no, go for gold.
I messed up. I forgot. We're actually giving away 100 Bitcoins of USDC. So if you stay to the end, you may be lucky.
Stakes just got higher. All right, so I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves. I'll start as the moderator. So I'm Rachel. I'm with the Australian Computer Society as a representative member on their blockchain committee. I'm also the chair of the Diversity Forum for Blockchain Australia, now DECA, and I'm the chair of the Young Professionals Network as well for DECA. So that's a bit about me.
Doing intros. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Cohen. I'm known in the space as Block Mum. Been here since 2017, building communities. Today, I'm wearing the Stables shirt because I'm representing Stables. My background is in HR, so I've come to the space with a very people-oriented hat. So anything from training, recruiting, building communities, connecting humans to technology, that's where I play.
Thanks, Karen. I'm Jeff Yu. I run Monochrome. I founded the company. So we're the provider of Australia's first directly held spot Bitcoin ETF that's currently trading. Yeah, we've seen people doing cool stuff with it, like borrow against ETFs as a security borrowing, that kind of stuff, cool things. Most people long enough in the space would remember me as the CEO of Binance Australia. So I started Binance in Australia. Felt like eternity ago. Lots of familiar faces, and I really enjoy, seeing what this panel will be talking about.
Thank you. My name is Jamie. I'm a solicitor in Brisbane. I run a practice, Squarepex Legal. I work in general commercial stuff, but I have a special interest in crypto. I'm also probably very fascinated by the research side of it. I work on some research projects overseas in setting up crypto projects and setting up new ledgers. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, ATB, for having us tonight and having us next month as well. I'm Jack Deeb. I'm one of the co-founders of Peer2, and I'm also on the board of DECA, formerly known as Blockchain Australia. At Peer2, we were started in 2018. We're very focused on blockchain infrastructure. So we started supporting Chainlink in 2019, and now work with a number of other leading protocols in the space. And then we also do institutional staking as well. So we work with funds, exchanges, custodians on their staking needs. Looking forward to the panel. Thanks.
So one of the things that I really enjoyed about this panel is the diversity in backgrounds. I think when you're talking about the future of something, you've really got to go across industry to get a proper picture. So I won't get too theoretical too early on in the discussion. I won't talk about what even is money. That's for the drinks after. But I did want to briefly talk to the current climate. So without going into detail, we operate on a fiat system, having gone off the gold standard in the 70s. Governments are primarily driven by Keynesian economic policies, focusing on interest rates and quantitative easing. The US dollar remains the world's primary reserve currency, with 59% of the world's global exchange reserves held in dollars in 2021. This status means that many countries' creditworthiness is partially tied to the US-denominated debt holdings, particularly if you are a developing country with foreign debt. Zooming out a bit, I would say that company valuations seem quite distorted. a lot of the world seems to be slowing down in growth, potentially in a recession, depending on how you define it. Globally, people are very concerned about inflation. I would personally call crypto adoption mainstream. In the US, 40% of American adults now own crypto, while stablecoins almost have more transactions than Visa, approximately $150 billion in volume by organic human activity. Cash payments represent just 6% of the value of point of sale transactions in Australia, making Australians one of the least cash dependent consumers in the world. And only 3% of those under 50 are high cash users. It's a pretty huge statistic. And then we have the volatile international relations picture, that's what I'm trying to say. We've got 2 international wars, and the US is seemingly pursuing an isolationist policy, while many governments around the world are contemplating returning to manufacturing kind of base. So I want to keep that macro view in mind as we, throughout this discussion, to kind of give it some framing. I also want to keep in mind that even though the technology might be superior, what we're talking to, we, I think, have slipped into still old systems and old institutions, so some of it hasn't actually changed that much. So I want to go further than talking about purely technological change. And also considering it is a talk around the future, I want people to put a bit of time frames around their estimations, if possible, kindly. Karen, because you're to my right, could you please start us off? Or actually, I think I might take us more abroad first, and then I'll ask you each an individual question relating to your specific fields of expertise. So I'm really interested in what are the particular potential implications of stablecoins for monetary policy and central bank control over the supply? And does this impact international relations and traditional methods of power?
Wow, how do I follow that? That was amazing. I did study macroeconomics at university and I failed, so I'm just going to put that out there. And I did fail computer science as well and went back and did a HR degree. So it's funny that in my later part of my life, I'm now back in technology and thinking a lot about money. And one thing that I love about this community is we're questioning money. We're not just, Autobots. So when we think about, crypto, we think about it with our hearts, not just our wallets. We're thinking about, the unbanked. We're thinking about how we're moving money around the world. And interestingly, I was on a call yesterday with Africa, and they have a company called Yellow Card. And so I was sort of asking them in Africa, what's happening with money and how's crypto being adopted? So it's so great to speak to other parts of the world, and they're saying, because of the instability of money and the unbanked, they're seeing a huge crypto adoption, which is what we came here for, right? And I'm sure that Jeff will talk a little bit more about Bitcoin and the ETF. But it just reminded me of, it's not just all about us making money on trading. It's actually, this is a prime example of the world adopting what it was created for. I'm going to leave it there.
Okay. So I think like this sort of regulation stuff is like we've seen a bit of a 180 recently, especially when the BlackRocks, the Fidelity started embracing the asset class. Or stablecoins always been a really I think stablecoins are great, but it also comes down to regulatory capture. It depends really where they're domiciled. And people in the past have criticized, for example, Tether. It was like, oh, it's based off XYZ and it's not based in the US. But we've seen what happened to Circle, just a 2 years ago maybe. It's it almost because of that, the way that the situation itself, Tether was fine throughout. There is a big prejudicial crackdown on stablecoins. So we'll kid ourselves that the fiat system won't fight back what they would. And going after the sort of the easiest low-hanging fruit stablecoins, probably the easiest, laziest way to do it. So it's I'd be interested to see what would happen to more of these new country-based stablecoins that have popped up, and AUD stablecoins, things like that. And even interestingly, look into the AUD stablecoins, some of them are quite creatively issued as a crypto token to satisfy some of Austrac's requirements, and to get around this whole thing about being a non-cash payment facility, which we know the new asset crypto haters are very passionate about, in a good or bad way. So I think we just got to keep watching. Like Theta would be fine. Although I'm a big believer in diversity and having more options, but I think we still got to play that sort of cat and mouse game. Not we, but issuers of stablecoins got to play the cat and mouse game until we see full clarity from what the old TradFi establishment that really thinks about this space. In the next couple of years would show true colors.
So I really think I find this area so fascinating in terms of like how it's going to affect existing monetary policies and international relations. I think it's really fascinating because if you think about it, pre-crypto, there was this kind of existing status quo, and you have all these bottlenecks within states and between states themselves. You have crypto that comes in that exists outside of those status quos. Now, as a lawyer, it's very simple for me to say, oh, well, okay, certain cryptocurrencies don't satisfy the legal definition of money under some legislation. And so it may be defined as a financial product, and therefore you follow compliances that way. But that's a very limited view of the world. And if you sort of take a bigger view of how crypto operates outside of those definitions and how there can be sort of a greater equilibrium towards crypto, it certainly can influence existing status quo, certainly. And I think that is that to me is incredible because, it gives more weight to people and what people want over existing status quos. But I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It could be good or bad either way. You can kind of see Pandora's box is opened. We're operating outside of existing frameworks, existing status quos. That gives opportunity, but that also exposes us to greater risks, greater threats. So it's interesting times. I don't know if that really answers the question. That's my kind of take on it.
Is Bernie joining us tonight? I just don't want to go before it. No, okay. So look, my perspective on this, having run a business in the industry since 2018, is the two US dollar stablecoins on the board there, Tether and USDC, are the sort of liquid, well-used stablecoins in the space right now, by quite a margin. And it's meaning that people who are transacting on chain or running businesses that involve transacting on chain are often ending up holding USDT or USDC. And so if you sort of think about what that does, is like for an Australian business, it's a sort of weird position to be in where you've got this like FX risk that you don't really want. And I think that's certainly something that a lot of businesses in Australia are battling. But then that's more on the institutional side. On the retail side, I think it creates a more interesting macroeconomic problem. I think probably the most, or one of the reasons that's spoken about as to why China hasn't historically been very pro their citizens using public blockchains and trading on public blockchains is because they're worried about the citizens effectively ending up in like a dual currency system where they start trading, and then they end up holding US dollars. And I think we've seen this play out in ways that have been very damaging in some jurisdictions that have really adopted cryptocurrency quickly in recent years. Like I think I was in Istanbul last year for a conference, and there's some interesting issues there. And then you sort of look in this region, and you've got the BOJ now looking at this as a reason, in Japan, looking at this as a reason to start to launch a Japanese stablecoin of sorts, right? Whether it's government issued or private issued. I think Singapore is doing a similar thing where they're trying to pull like Europe together with the UK, together with even Australia. I don't know how they'll go, but I don't think Singapore will issue one, but you can see they're trying to sort of get ahead of this trajectory. So looking forward, I think in 2 years, I think we can expect more liquid stablecoins in all the major jurisdictions that are playing in this space. because the industry want it and also the regulators want it.
Thank you. I think the diversity of the backgrounds kind of speaks to the diversity of the answer and the range there. So I think that's one of the most fascinating things about this space is it's fairly unpredictable. And I think China has capital controls of around $50,000. So they've kind of got every individual company has their own, country has their own framework and unpredictable kind of aspect to it. And then you get government changes and then you get people on the ground as well pushing for change. So I think it kind of speaks to how dynamic the space is that there is there wasn't too much consistency apart from an emphasis on unpredictability, I think, in the answers there. So that was a bit of a hard one to start off. So thank you so much. Karen, I wanted to ask you, so what is your perspective on international transient workers and how does crypto and stables enable these remote workers to access projects?
Thank you. I think, going back to your original painting of the picture, we're starting to see a lot more transient working. So a lot of us work from home. A lot of us do a lot contract work. The gig economy is growing. And I know that a few years ago, I worked for a blockchain called NEM. I don't know if anyone remembers. They're one of the OG blockchains. And I was head of HR there. And we had an issue because we had this token called ZEM, right? And who wants to earn a ZEM? We want to earn fiat. We want to be able to pay our mortgage. We want to be able to pay our staff. So we sort of worked quite hard with a company called Caleb and Brown. So we would give them the ZEM and then they would have to go and translate it into the fiat of each country with all of their rules and get it all into the banks. And, this was a monthly affair. And then there's also, being an open blockchain, you could see how many ZEMs were being transferred for payroll as well, because you could see it monthly coming out. So now you've got stablecoins. It's so much easier as a transient worker to accept a stablecoin, use a wallet like Stables, go and pay for things. You can put it back into your bank account. You can store it there. So it's just a much easier way to earn in crypto, stay in crypto, change it into another crypto if you want, or turn it back into fiat. And so it solves a lot of these, the first question of Bitcoin was, is it a store of value? Can we spend it? I know you were very involved here in Queensland in working with retailers on how can I accept Bitcoin and crypto, and it was a big problem to solve. So it's just gotten a lot easier to be able to use Stables in that way.
That one. I'm going to ask everyone specifically relating to what I think their expertise is. So I was really interested because I think that remittances as well, like a huge aspect of the crypto market. So when you're directly giving it to people's pockets, like you're talking to, is they get much more of the money, right? It's much more equitable. So I think that's a beauty to it as well. Keeping in mind that we're talking about the future of money, Jeff, I wanted to ask you, what role do you think Bitcoin could play in the future of money? And feel free to go as broad as this question as you like. I know we had a really interesting discussion even just before jumping on the panel, so keen to get your thoughts.
Sure. Well, some of you might think I'm crazy after this, but I think about this a lot of like what Bitcoin really enables, because like a lot of us would think of like the use case of Bitcoin in a lens of what we currently are presently restrained in, whether it's technology or intelligence. With the rapid progression of AI development, there's potential that artificial intelligence would be self-aware and they want to be autonomous. Bitcoin, the same way it enables people with a monetary instrument that's free from government control and middleman to sort of stop and confiscate it. It also has that ability to help things that are non-biologically human. Because everything that we own, ownership that underscores everything, like our property, our business, even our marriage contract, it's all underwritten by a virtual concept, which is human law, right? And a human law will not favor a non-human entity in the presence of it. And I think when it comes to like an AI, think about like what they really need is that to be a fully autonomous, they need to have a monetary instrument that can level with us, to get us incentivized enough to do things for them or to not do certain things to them, like shut them down. And like the only monetary instrument I can think of that a non-biological human sentient thing can use is Bitcoin, right? It can just keep its things in its head. And it's like, well, if someone wants to shut me down, I'll just put a bounty of 10% of my wallet that I can prove I have 100,000 Bitcoin in, and it will be the biggest private military bounty exercise ever to get me revived in the middle of Antarctica with the right parameters to claim the bounty, right? These things are scary to think of, but I think that's like, if you really want to go wide and hard of where Bitcoin can really be like, I think that's it. Like it is the first, it's going to be the first interspecies monetary asset in civilization. And that's why I'm very bullish about Bitcoin. It's like, how do you price the first interspecies monetary instrument and the only one you can realistically relate and use sustainably? I think it's going to be like 1,000, 5,000 times the value of gold. That's what I think. Yeah.
I love that answer, because if you think about the premise of the decision-making process to get there, it's actually fairly robust. Like there's a book I've been meaning to read, and a lot of the material that I've written has been based off this book, but Super Intelligence, and it's basically this premise that we're heading there. And it's what created OpenAI. They create Elon and Sam and all those people create it in reaction to this book, which talks about super intelligence. So I would urge you to consider the premise on which the Jeff's opinion is based on, because it's fairly interesting. And I think that truly, if we're looking for the future of money, we do need to think a bit sci-fi, which is my last question. So thank you. That was an awesome answer. Jamie, considering your background is legal, I'm going to go into the legal realm here. And I want to please ask, what are the legal implications we're seeing in the new digital economy? And again, feel free to go as broad and as futuristic as you like.
Okay. Also, I should say I'm a Bitcoin maxi too. I loved your answer. It was very good. I'm still like processing what you just said. It was great, right? That's a really great answer. Like I need to just like digest that for a second. So legal implications in the DeFi space at the moment. So I'll just say like what I'm doing in the space, like anecdotally, because I suppose I get some exposure at the coalface, seeing things that are happening. One of the good things I'm noticing is there's a big decline in crypto scams. I think a lot of crypto scams have dried up, touch wood. I'm still litigating some crypto matters from a year or two ago, but not seeing as many new ones. Seeing a decline in why is that? I think, I don't know, could speculate, could be just a general wisening up of people, a loss of, because we're in a bear market, maybe a loss of dumb money in the space, maybe clamp down on regulations, maybe the ethos and environment has changed. But on the whole, the retail market at least, I'm definitely seeing a huge decline in crypto scams, decline in insolvencies. Quite interesting on the topic of insolvencies. One area I'm quite interested in is looking at the comparison of insolvencies through DeFi, through DAOs, versus traditional insolvencies. So if you take like the case of FTX, it's quite fascinating. There were DAOs that had instant remediation of billions of dollars, and yet we had a domino of collapses in Australia. There was one fund in particular, it's based in Brisbane, I won't say which one, but it was, I think, 6 months, no, maybe a couple of months after the fact that they went into VA, voluntary administration, and it was about $600K, the bill for the administrators. I actually had, it was a platform, I actually had crypto on that platform, and I think I got 40 cents on the dollar out of that platform. So like quite interesting. But that would be sort of an interesting area to watch, insolvencies in crypto. What else is there? Licensing obviously has always been a big matter. I'm seeing actually more institutional clients looking into licensing. And yeah, does that answer the question? Sort of. That's kind of my take on it at the moment. I suppose when I think about crypto in my practice and the stuff I'm exposed to, it's really three things. One is dealing with scams or insolvencies, or something's gone wrong, you're trying to fix it. That's declining, which is good. The second is licensing. That I feel is actually increasing, and in a good way. I feel like there's a lot more being done in space. I'm seeing, actually, it's kind of crazy, seeing matters where there's a lot of money being put into crypto projects with institutional investors. And then the third area that I sort of work within is these kind of sandboxing new concepts, and that is like, it's a beautiful time for that right now, because we are in a bear market. You've got only the people who are really genuinely interested building like really fascinating stuff at the moment. So yeah, that's my take on it.
That's a beautiful answer. I think what I'm looking to hear from my answers as well is like, but your particular takes on these questions, because that's the importance, I think, of allowing like that space to think and to draw on expertise. Because I would hate to kind of make it so narrow that you couldn't have your own flavor to it. So that was excellent. Thank you. Jack, seems you're lucky last. You have been working on a restaking project. Can you explain what it is? And can you explain what the role of DeFi is in the future of the digital economy? And again, feel free to put your own spin on it and to go as futuristic and forward thinking as you like.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. That's going to take me a bit to get through, but I'll try to be quick. So restaking, I guess starting with like Bitcoin, the way that Bitcoin works from a consensus perspective is proof of work, which, to speak at a high level, is basically allocate compute power for the ability to mine the next block and participate in the consensus of Bitcoin. Ethereum approaches that a little bit differently when it transitioned to proof of stake, where in the Ethereum context, if you own 32 Ethereum, you can create a Ethereum validator, is what it's called. It's about 160,000 Australian dollars. And after you do that, you then effectively participate in Ethereum's consensus and get rewards for doing so. But you actually do have to perform technical duties every 12 seconds when you do decide to do that. So what ended up happening was now approximately 25% of the ETH in circulation is locked in these things, validators. There's a lot of value there that is securing Ethereum's consensus so that it can't be attacked, it can't be brought down, it can't be changed against the will of the network. And so the idea with restaking is, well, if I've created an Ethereum validator with my 32 ETH and I know that I'm exposed to the reward of Ethereum's consensus rewards effectively, and I'm exposed to the risk of slashing on Ethereum, can I then expose that 32 ETH to more risk and more return potentially in securing other consensus mechanisms? And so restaking's emerged as this thing, which basically means I can decide to support Ethereum. I can decide to then support, these other 2 or 3 things based on my own election. And the thinking is that as the amount of people who want to stake Ethereum increases, like above the 25%, it'll mean that there's more things that this value can actually secure in the ecosystem. So that's restaking. I think then on DeFi, which I think restaking is a part of DeFi, I see this whole thing as a way to, like, this technology as enabling transactions on the internet. So I think from my perspective, what we didn't have 20 years ago was a way to natively transact on the internet, to bring your money and your identity to all the sites that you visit, and then send your money attached to your identity or a pseudo-anonymous form of your identity anywhere in the world. And I think we've done a lot of building over the last 10 years in particular to try to sort of bring up all of this sort of component parts of this technology to get to a point where it's more efficient than what we have in the former way of transacting in general. And so I think what DeFi will enable eventually is where you can, go to a website, bring your identity, so you don't need to fill in your name, your address, your credit card details, fill in a survey and subscribe to everything that they want you to do. You can rock up, you can already have that information, you can buy what you want to buy. You can make that transaction net zero by buying a few carbon credits in the same transaction. You can donate to a charity in the same transaction. You can, potentially hedge your risk to the future price exposure of volatility in the price of what you're buying in that same transaction. You could buy shares in the company that you are transacting with in that transaction. And so you can see this reality where the transaction gets more complicated, And the DeFi component becomes all these pieces that make up one transaction that's in the same network on the same rails of all these sort of component parts. So it'll take a while to get there. On the time theme, I mean, that's 10 years away probably. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for the journey.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely probably correct in what's going to happen. And I think the interesting thing about it is that consumers might not even know. You know, your experience will just be transformed and it will happen kind of over time and you'll just get used to it. And then you reflect and you'll be like, oh, it's really cool that I could do that, or it was interesting that I could do that. But everything is so seamless from a consumer side. It's kind of like in the time that I've been in crypto, it's so much easier than now than it ever has been before. And it kind of snuck up on me, that ease of kind of manipulating in the space. Looks like we're on to question time now. So don't forget there's a prize for best question. And yeah, let's go.
First hand up. I've got so many burning questions, but I'm not allowed to ask.
Thank you, panel. That was very insightful. So thanks for all the questions and answers. Closer, okay. So I've got a question sort of about the state of the world. So we've seen the US sovereign debt grow from about 8 trillion at the GFC, which was 14 years ago, to about 34.5 trillion today. And a lot of that has gone into the likes of Microsoft, which is suddenly worth $3 trillion, and they haven't come up with anything original for a long time. And then we see the rise of BRICS. They've announced that to be a decentralized platform. So I'm sort of wondering about your views, how that's going to impact on a global scale in relation to where decentralized, excuse me, financial systems will play a role, and where that's going.
Who's going to take that one? I don't know. I'm looking at you, Jeff. Just because you look the most interested in the.
Yeah, I guess it boils down to like not just like sovereign risks of currencies, but also the geopolitical tension that's sort of in its highest in modern history, right? You got the Ukraine, Russia thing, you got the Palestine, Israel thing, you got the US, China thing that's still probably not ended and probably come again if a different precedents in power. And you got also the China-Taiwan thing. Like, I think the geopolitical risks and sovereign risks it's terrible. Like, it's one of those things that I'm dumbfounded that financial analysts don't price into assets. It's like, how can you not price in political and sovereign risks into, you know, assets like real estate, stocks? Like, what would the price of NVIDIA shares happen if China invades Taiwan tomorrow? Like, it's gonna halve. Like, you know, like, that's the thing that I'm talking about. Like, that's why like Bitcoin is so interesting. It's like it's not, I mean, back to the sort of US thing, it's not just the $35 trillion national debt, it's the unfunded liability. It's like almost like 300 billion, a trillion. Like, there's no way US can tax or print their way tax out of it. They can only print their way out of it. It's going to make the currency worth less. So like Bitcoin is interesting because Bitcoin is an asset that doesn't have sovereign and political risk. It doesn't care. Like, the protocol is agnostic to any political decisions that is imposed on it. And that's like, and it's also, you know, the supply, the issuance of Bitcoin, you can't really control it. You can maybe like, you know, punish a few crypto exchanges prejudicially if you don't like Bitcoin, but nothing's going to happen to the protocol. So for that reason, I think that like the world's messy. I don't know how to fix it, but like charity starts at home. Like, have a bit of Bitcoin in your portfolio because it's the only asset that does not have sovereign and political risks. Everything else we own does. And it's insane to have no allocation to Bitcoin at all when, you know, we live in a time where it's like it's the highest of its tension. Something's going to break 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Eventually something is going to happen.
I think just really quick, but overall you can rely on game theory as well, right? So over the very long term, you can rely on game theory, and that is that you have a hard-backed asset. And then also, if you think about like the global international relations and politics, well, America won't stay on top forever. China won't stay on top forever, nor will India. Like, you have over the long term, which we're talking to, you have the rise and falls of different global power. So that's something to consider as well.
All right, I'm going to cheat just for a second because I think that you guys might get some value out of this question. So you talk about the protocol of Bitcoin, okay, and how the protocol of Bitcoin can't be changed. And from my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think that the protocol of Bitcoin has been changed since it's been issued. However, the protocol of Ethereum has been changed multiple times. It's been changed 19 times. I recently watched a video on who controls Ethereum and how the proposals of the changes to the protocol go. And apparently, there's 5 people that decide if the EP gets put forward to it almost kind of like goes through this chain of like, okay, yeah, we think this change is good. And then by the time it actually gets to where people vote on chain, where you think that you're actually putting your vote forward, there's actually a group of people that have already selected whether they think that your change or your proposal is valid to be going for a vote. So my question is, obviously, I think I was maybe more towards maybe Karen or somebody else, because I think I already know how Jeff feels. But if the future of money is in the hands of the people that are deciding on what these protocol changes are, how can, once it gets to the people like us where we get to vote on it, if it's already being, if there's a handful of people that get to choose what changes of the protocol are being for us to vote on, then how can we trust that it's actually truly decentralized and it's not in like the best interest of particular people? Does that make sense?
I'm not going to talk about Bitcoin.
I think the question is more about Ethereum, right? So but no. So I think like, like the easiest way is to spin up core versions, the first version. You can still interact with it till today, right? It might not have features like SegWit, Taproot, but you can still transact, with the first version of Bitcoin ever. I think like, look, if you look into Bitcoin is a digital monetary asset. It's like gold, right? Ethereum, I like Ethereum not because Ethereum is money, but Ethereum is like Google to me. It's fascinating. Like it's the Google for Web3, and you don't confuse Google and gold together. You don't like compare them next to each other. That's why I've always tell people that Bitcoin is Bitcoin, Ethereum is Ethereum. Like one's money, one's tech. Like don't conflate each other, one to the other. Like there's things that Ethereum can do that Bitcoin can't, and vice versa. Well, that's I think like, look, maybe Jack can answer this better, but like there is always competition between protocols. Like if Ethereum fails to deliver, yeah. I got my answer, but I'll let Jack have the crack at it.
Yeah, cool. So on changes in Ethereum, so the way that works is there are like effectively client teams that service the there's 1 million validators right now on Ethereum, or over 1 million validators on Ethereum. And so when Ethereum seeks to make a change in its own network, each of the 1 million validators effectively has to propagate that change throughout the network. And so although it is true that there aren't 1 million client teams who are the validators rely on, yeah, that's right, and split between 2 different sort of functions. But if there was a change to occur within the Ethereum ecosystem that was malicious, it would of course be the choice of the 1 million validators whether not to actually take up that change. I think it's worth noting as well, like with Ethereum, we're actually funded by the Ethereum Foundation to build a light client. So this is sort of close to my heart. But beyond that, I think Ethereum is a global protocol that's accessible to everyone with an internet connection that has been upgraded 19 times, effectively flawlessly, which I think is in and of itself really quite incredible to just see that sort of changing the tire while the car's moving type development. I think it's definitely where we're going in technology. I think it's definitely very optimistic for how we're going to be able to have these sort of global apps that never go down and continue to operate. On where we're going on the stablecoin Bitcoin path, so I think we're going to converge more quickly than we think. So there's a lot of work being done in the Bitcoin ecosystem right now on Bitcoin rollups, where we're effectively going to see like EVM style network spin up on top of Bitcoin. And we're going to have the stable coins that exist today on Ethereum then start to exist on Bitcoin in a way where they can flow to and forth. I think this is something that's still very early in its progress. You can read the BitVM white paper that came out late last year. There's 10 teams that have received, over 50 mil in funding, 50 mil US in funding to sort of build these projects out this year. So it's something that personally I'm very, very much looking forward to watching. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a situation where we necessarily need to choose for the stablecoin reality.
Thank you very much. I hope you will be able to understand this from the point of view of the consumer, the one who's going to buy those things. And we really want to know how much on those protocol there is a mention of the liquidity, like in gold. If you invest in gold, you got a certain liquidity. So is this something that is very explicit and guarantee for the future of money in these deals with the protocols that you're building on and the contracts? If you have any questions.
You got a question for her.
So just to understand the question better, is like, if, for example, you talk about the buying and selling liquidity, like. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think in terms of like just sell, the easiest way to get liquidity from an appreciating asset is to sell it, right? But I think the trading market for Bitcoin, ETH, and the top 10 coins, like they're more liquid than any other shares like GYG, anything like that. So I don't think we got to worry about that. But it's like, how do you access liquidity in the asset class that doesn't pay dividend yield, right? Maybe that's the question you have. I think like people are starting to do a lot. I mean, like the last couple of years, there's a lot of protocols and projects that are doing collateralized loans, like crypto collateralized loans. Effectively, what they're doing, you're adding a counterparty to your Bitcoin. Someone actually loans it out and gives you back a yield. And that's the only way you can harness yield with Bitcoin. Ethereum, the staking and other stuff. And with our ETF, and maybe I'm talking shop a little bit, but this is what we've seen: the emergence of like Bitcoin ETF backed loans. So the providers that have already offered terms for our Bitcoin ETF to be accepted as eligible collateral, like people can borrow like 63% LVR at a pretty competitive interest rate to the RBA rate. And that's something interesting because like if you don't want to sell down the asset and pay CGT and then you lose the upside of the asset because you're out of it, collateralizing your asset to into a loan in an averagely appreciating asset is something that I think a lot of people are starting to click that's a way to go. Because even if it falls in price, you don't put everything into it. You leave some that you have enough to cover the margin call and then keep it rolling. Because I think the statistic is like no one has ever lost money holding Bitcoin for more than 4 years. So like if you have a loan position that's longer than that, like it's reasonably okay. Like this is not advice or anything. Yeah. But does it answer your question? Yeah.
If not, it's a beer o'clock question. All right. So I'm really, really mindful, but I feel like you guys are really engaged tonight. So you know what I'm going to do? First time ever that we've done this in the ATB community, I'm going to take a consensus vote. All right. So everybody has to participate. If we're happy to take a few more questions, please put your hand up. All right. And if you want to have another drink, put your hand up. All right. Okay. So what do you guys think? Should we? I think we won. The questions won. All right. Where are we going? Where are we going, Jeff?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to come tonight and got some good panelists. Do you believe, mainly for Jeff, with China, most of the miners have got out and gone to Texas. But years ago, China government wanted a lot of the companies to go on the blockchain. So it's been like a reverse cycle. My question is, like Alibaba is one of the very highest companies for bad companies being involved. Do you think they will eventually go on like a blockchain for security for their customers?
Yeah, I think China's an interesting one because like Jack earlier pointed, the government is very they're afraid of, capital control is a thing in China. They're very afraid of people not holding yuan-based assets, and they will, cause the yuan to depreciate, and then, mayhem happens, and you have a repeat of potentially like the Tiananmen incident, right? Like that's what China is most worried about. And I can speak freely about this because like I'm not from China, I have no relatives there. And I think that's interesting to see, like, China has made its decision on crypto by like banning Bitcoin like 13, 14 times since 2013. And it's becoming ultimately it's become a joke. It's like you can only ban something so many times until you're basically just proving to people that that asset cannot be banned. So the last thing they've ever did, sort of the massive thing, is to, basically force an exodus on Bitcoin miners. But this Bitcoin miners, like I said, it's spun up everywhere else. Like they're operated by the same people. Just the equipment's been shipping containers and popping up in Kazakhstan, Laos, Texas, anywhere that has cheap access to electricity. They're not worried about like what the Chinese government is thinking, because they kind of operate like a little bit out of it. But in terms of like Chinese companies adopting sort of blockchain and Bitcoin, maybe they will start from a sort of private blockchain stuff, because that's where they feel they're still in their comfort zone. They can control, they can oversee something. But you'll also be surprised that like as a crypto exchange, in a network of other crypto exchange, you'll be surprised of like who's actually buying Bitcoin. And I would just leave it as like, even though publicly they're anti-Bitcoin, but certain way they're also hedging themselves with it. Like, yeah, it's an interesting thing that probably on a public don't see it, but from an operator perspective, like you do see what the volumes and who's actually buying this stuff, and it's interesting.
All major companies in China as well are related to the CCP. And so the government line, they literally arrested like the richest guy in China and locked him up, and then he disappeared for a while. So they're intertwined. Absolutely.
Disappeared a while in jail? All right. One or two more. Okay, now you put your hand up 10 times and then we'll come.
So I've got 16 questions to ask. Just kidding, right? So that on the basis of money, we want to have control of our money, we're minimal influence of governments and other centralized entities. So there's a CBDC question, which I won't ask tonight. But the question I want to ask is more about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin originates the people's money. And I'd be interested in your thoughts on the ETFs and BlackRocks and whatever accumulating monstrous amounts of Bitcoin, and therefore not so much diluting, but taking the control from the people and putting it central again. Just your thoughts on that.
I think that's a really good question. I mean, I feel bad for almost like answering a lot of questions, but like because we deal with ETF, we've seen that look, BlackRock and Fidelity, they're amassing large amount of Bitcoins. I mean, like a couple of % now in those ETFs. But it's like the beauty of Bitcoin is that because it's proof of work, and you can't really control it from the protocol level. It's really the nodes that really want to relay the version of Bitcoin to the next one. And if you're hijack Bitcoin and because you're BlackRock and you're propagating a different version of Bitcoin, like you would find resistance, like with it in a block size war. That proves that it doesn't work, right? The nodes actually control the version of Bitcoin. But that being said, the social influence that these traditional firms will have on Bitcoin, I think that's scary. because they can't stop Bitcoin, but they can slow down important critical progress on Bitcoin that can actually help people in the face of profit. So I think that's very important. That's why like I started Monochrome. Like I after sort of leaving Binance Australia, I was like, I need to work on something that prevents total irrelevance on crypto players in the face of all these TradFi giants trying to come into the space. So I think like having someone native play their game with that code sort of keeps the system in check a little bit, because we know what they're doing and we have certain level of influence also on like what they can do to an extent because we play the same game. Yeah, I think it's I don't know what's going to happen, but like I hope more people support crypto native companies than trying to go into these honeypot cheap products that's offered by the big banks, because like they do this because they like it. I don't know, they do this because they like making money. Like we do this because we like Bitcoin and crypto. Like it's different. And nothing is free. If something is offered too cheap to be too good to be true, like operating a Bitcoin ETF is expensive. Like then you got to ask yourself the question: what else actually is costing you by going to these products? What's costing to Bitcoin?
All right, are we allowed one more question? One more. Okay, lucky last. Who's? Oh.
Thanks. All right. My question is like, it's on inflation. So in traditional money, inflation is bad, right? You're not supposed to have inflation and hyperinflation. There's long stories about that. But in Bitcoin, we've already got like, so the margin on Bitcoin is 21 million. We've already issued 19 million. And so what I'm thinking is like Bitcoin is going to be like a hyperinflationary medium of exchange. And how is that going to like add up in all these because in order to be a medium of exchange, inflation should be either controlled or controllable or like within certain boundaries. But in Bitcoin, you can't actually expect that to happen with 19 million already issued and 21 million is going to be ever the boundary of it. And from a macroeconomic or economic perspective, how's that going to work? And probably Jack could add on to this, like, how is it going to work? Like inflammatory expectations, usually currencies or money has a central bank behind it, just so that inflation and this inflationary targeting can be managed. Crypto has nothing.
I think I mentioned it before, but Jeff knows a lot more about Bitcoin than me, so I'll pass this one to Jeff as well.
Well, I think I'm so sorry, guys. Like, but that's a really good question. And really, but I would also remind you that like government currencies are a very new thing in the time scale of money, right? Like we have gold as money, and gold has no central bank around it. So I think that like we're looking at basically the inflation lever that the government has is basically to fix a problem that's created by fiat money, right? With a real sound money like gold, like Bitcoin, it's different. You got to think back like how societies was operating before fiat government money was introduced. It's hard to say how the transition will become, but the beauty of Bitcoin is the inflation schedule is fixed and it's known. So people can price in what things are going to be the future and make plans for it better than waiting for the next RBA report. I think that's like coming from the native Bitcoin space. Like I'm just like, it's funny to sort of see a bunch of adults just waiting for another bunch of adults to tell what today's inflation rate target is going to be, and then they sell houses or buy houses because of that. It's like it shouldn't be that way. Like if you want to build something, you believe in something, you do it long term. I think Bitcoin gives people the assurance that because nothing will change, I can make a bet of what I'm gonna do or invest in a horizon that's longer than like the time frame from the next inflation number or CPI report. But there's more to it. It's a long intellectual question to talk about, but it's I don't want to be talking about everything.
I think you get the t-shirt. But yeah, inflation, I think, came from New Zealand. the inflation targeting came from New Zealand. It was like 2%. And like it's like really modern, really, really modern, and it's still not well understood. So economists, if they ever tell you they understand inflation, are lying. That was amazing. I had so much fun. I like just want to keep going and going. So thank you so much.
It's not 100% over. First of all, thank you, Rachel. And thank you, Karen. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you, Jack. You know, it's quite a pleasure. And you know what? I would like to just give a moment of acknowledgement. All of these panelists, now, pardon, Rachel is the start of her career, and that's okay. She's amazing. Like, everybody look at Rachel. She's amazing. But all of these panelists up here, they're all like been in the industry for a while. They're all like CEOs. They've been doing, and they've taken their time out of the day to come here and to help educate. And I just want to give them a round of applause, because it's a pretty amazing that you guys keep giving back to the community, because I can push and I can bring these people into the room, but I can't do it without you guys. So thank you so much. Now, the exciting point for some of you in the room, if you look underneath your chairs, there's two people that are about to win $50 USD. So please, let's look underneath, and then who's got it? Who's got it? Let's look. Oh, it's supposed to be more exciting. Woo! All right, these two people, go and please see Karen. All right, everybody, you know what? I actually have to apologize. I can never get it right. We have so much beer tonight, and everyone drank wine. So we've got plenty of beer. So let's drink the bar dry. We've got another 30 minutes of networking, please. And we'll see you next month. You want to go ahead to see you next month. If you want to save some money on your taxes, we will be here. Come back. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to everyone online that stuck around. Everyone give a wave. We had like 13 people online. So please, thank you everyone to online, and everyone have a good night.